On April 4th, 2019, the Toronto Blue Jays posted their starting roster. Year of the Vlad replied, "Did you trade Smoak?" The Blue Jays responded, "No, he has neck tightness and could be available to pinch hit if needed." Year of the Vlad responded, "Source?" And the Blue Jays replied, "Literally us, the Blue Jays." This is the Museum of Twitter, the show where we talk about the most important tweets in the history of Twitter.com. It's Sports Tweet Saturday, and this exchange is a great example of why you should always look at the username of the person you're responding to, or just why you shouldn't be a jackass on the internet. The Toronto Blue Jays were simply trying to update their fans on who was playing on a given day, and for some reason, Year of the Vlad decided not to listen to them. So basically what happened is this. They tweeted out an updated version of their roster for their April 4th game, and their usual first baseman at the time, Justin Smoak, was not playing, and that led Year of the Vlad to ask, "Did you trade Smoak?" He thought that the reason why Justin Smoak was not playing was because he got traded. But the official Blue Jays account clarified that he simply had neck tightness and he was available to pinch hit, but he wasn't starting. And rather than just being like, "Oh, that's good, they didn't trade Smoak," Year of the Vlad insisted, "Source?" And the Blue Jays had to be like, "Us. We would know if we traded him. We're the Blue Jays." Now, some people say that Year of the Vlad is trolling. And he very well might be, but if he is, it's just like lame trolling. Like, there are times where it's funny to ask source to someone when the source is obvious, but I don't know, this is just not that funny. More than anything, I think he's just being a dingus and not paying attention and thinking he's clever by being like, "Source?" And this is hardly the most important thing going on, but every time I ever see this exchange, I'm always like baffled how a guy whose name is Year of the Vlad and his display name is Thank You Pilar, two different references to Blue Jays players, could possibly not know whether or not they traded their starting first baseman. I looked up Justin Smoak's game logs from the year 2019, and he played the day before. I just don't know how someone could be a serious baseball fan, serious enough to once again have two different Blue Jays references in their display name and their @ and not know that baseball players miss a game or two all the time due to minor injuries. I'm a big Mets fan, as people know, and if Francisco Lindor wasn't in the lineup for 2 games, I would not assume he got traded. But I think what this is symptomatic of is the way that some people are overly skeptical to an annoying degree on the internet. Obviously, there are people whose problem is that they're not skeptical enough, but there's definitely a genre of person who is overly skeptical whenever information they get doesn't confirm their priors. Year of the Vlad is clearly worried or concerned that they traded Smoak, and so when the first answer he gets is no, Smoak wasn't traded, he just has neck tightness, that doesn't confirm the worry he's feeling, so he has to ask for a source. Obviously, you see it a lot in political arguments where someone will get a statistic or a piece of information that they don't like, and they're like, a source? That's not to say that it isn't helpful to clarify the source of a piece of information. A lot of times information is from unreliable sources. But asking for a source in itself is not like a gotcha. Now, this exchange quickly blew up because it's very, very funny. "Literally us, the Blue Jays," is such a perfect line. And it became synonymous with a person or a group reporting about themselves. For example, Stefan Rosner tweeted, "Brock Nelson will play tomorrow versus Dallas, per Nelson, #Isles," and Phil Metro96 said, "Literally us, the Blue Jays," tweet. When the official Dallas Stars Instagram account was asked by Max Menzel, "Why do you guys always post about the Stars?" Dallas Stars said, "Great question, Max, great question." Which lets Stu to say, "This gives me literally us, the Blue Jays vibes." When Kate Urban, wife of football player Brent Urban, tweeted at Adam Schefter, "DE Brent Urban is re-signing with the Chicago Bears on a 1-year deal. Per source, I'm the source." Inevitable Scape said in the Bears Reddit, "Taking a page out of the Blue Jays playbook, I see." And a point that is unfortunately more true than it even was in 2019 is what Dara Lynn said when she quoted the exchange, saying, "This is actually what being a journalist on Twitter feels like in 2019, though." And occasionally people will use the "literally us, the Blue Jays" as a thing to quote for a punchline, both in a positive and negative context. In 2022, Ethan Zine said when somebody asked who is going to win the AL East this year, "Literally us, the Blue Jays." Alternatively, a few days after the original exchange, Sandy quoted and said, "Who got swept today? Literally us, the Blue Jays." For his part, Year of the Vlad apologized. He said, "I apologize for last night," to which the Blue Jays replied, "All is fair in love in Twitter." Which is honestly, I think, pretty good evidence that this was not a troll. Or if it was a very low-effort one. There's obviously a whole genre of posts, which is like the "don't you know who I am" type of post. And this is definitely part of it. This seems like obvious advice, but do just pay attention to who you're replying to. And don't reflexively go into every interaction on the internet like you're being scammed or lied to. That is not to say that there are not a lot of scams and lies on the internet, but you oftentimes will put yourself in positions where you'll look like a moron if you assume that everyone is lying to you. Particularly when they are the verified account for the Toronto Blue Jays. This is before you could buy a blue check. You knew that these were actually the Blue Jays when you replied. They're as good a source as any, unless you actually need Justin Smoak's medical charts where it says that he has neck tightness. Follow me for a new tweet every day, and please consider joining my Patreon, patreon.com/Museum of Twitter, where you get a weekly bonus episode called the Museum of Not Twitter, and you get to vote when I cover on Subscriber Sundays.